Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to Robin Norgren and to the art classes and meditation classes that I offer. I'm so glad that you're here. This is going to be a class where we are going to take a painting by Henri Matisse, and we're going to step by step walk through how to create something in the style of his Flowers on the Table series that he has. And at the same time, we're going to be incorporating meditation practices throughout this class. So if you've seen any of my other classes and participated in them, you know that I have talked many times about the ability that creativity has to bring a lot of those meditation practices into play. Peaceful, calm, clarity, wisdom. And so it's my pleasure to offer this as a way for you to try this out for yourself and experience those same qualities. So make sure and check out in the notes. I will have a copy of the painting that we're going to walk through step by step. But as always, you don't have to do this particular incorporation of the colors and things like that you see in the actual painting by Matisse. But what I would say is that just start off in the way that's most practical for you. So if there are colors that you are drawn to more so than what you see in the copy of the painting, or if maybe there is something that you would like to create alongside, even though it doesn't look exactly like this painting, this is the class for you. So I'm excited to get started. Go ahead and gather up your supplies. We will be working in paint, so whether it be acrylic paint or watercolor paint, I'll be using a combination of the two, but you don't have to have those things. You can use oil pastels, crayons, markers, Sharpies, anything that you're inspired to try right now. So, all right, come on back once you have everything in place, and we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, well, welcome back. I wanted to show you one of the techniques that I like to use when I am creating paintings, because I am also an artist as well as an art teacher. And what I find, no matter how long that you have been creating artwork or doing any sort of creative thing, or even if you're a writer, you are always faced what we call the blank space or the white page. And so what I'd like to challenge you to do is to try this as a way to get out of that feeling of needing to have a photorealistic picture of what it is you see that you're creating in the style of Matisse. And here's what I have done. So I'm giving you an example here. And so this is what I would like you to go away and do. So I use a lot of wood panels. And what I will do is I will just take all the colors that I plan on using in the painting, and I just put them all over the painting. So I'll turn it in different directions, and making sure, of course, not to make it too muddy, because what will happen is if you just keep throwing paint on it, it'll suddenly turn brown. But as you can see, there's some red here, there's some orange, there's some tan, there's some olive, there's also some blue and black in the background. And so what you're going to do to get your painting ready for us to officially start to create this piece is you're going to take the colors of your paint or whatever it is that you're using, and you're going to go in this kind of scribbling fashion, organically painting shapes, turning it from time to time, letting it dry, and then just letting it be, letting the paint rest so that the paint and the paper or whatever you're choosing to paint on, this is wood. I will be using a mixed media paper, so I'm going to do the same on this once we go away. But this is what I would like you to end up with, something like this, where you almost can see some figures in what you've created. And this will open up your mind and heart to how you're going to approach this painting. And what I hope you will find is as you release yourself into this process of just kind of free flowing, it will be a meditative practice, and it will also be a way for you to just let go of any desire to be perfect in the painting process. All right, I'll see you back here in a little bit. Let this dry, I would say, for about an hour. Maybe go at it again one more time, and then come back to the next video, and then we will start the step-by-step process of creating the painting. So I believe the painting is called Anemones and Peach Blossoms. So anyway, make sure and print that off if you haven't already, so it's kind of side by side, so you can use that as your guide as we go through the process. All right, see you back soon. All right, so here's a little peek into how I'm creating my background. I've used different kinds of brushes. Again, you don't even have to confine yourself to brushes. You can use things like Q-tips, you can use cotton swabs, you can use the back of your paintbrush or back of a marker. You can roll the marker. And what I'm doing is I'm just, again, putting all my colors of what I'm going to ultimately use in the final painting. And I'm just kind of closing my eyes and adding some color to it. Again, not being too terribly fancy or particular with it, because what you'll find is, if you haven't done something like this before, you're going to find a cohesion that would be there because underneath, you know that all of the colors that you're ultimately putting in your painting has been represented. And if you really let yourself get into the process, you might even find that you are loving the abstract look of what it is that you're creating. So I'll show you some of the colors I've chosen. So I'm using the Apple Barrel brand of Pewter Gray. I'm using an Apple Barrel brand of Khaki. I'm using a Craftsmart brand of Turquoise. And this has just been my favorite color palette for a few months now. A Craftsmart brand of Sage Green. Let me add that on there. And then I think I'm also going to add a little bit of red in the background. And as you can see, just depending on how, different printers pick up the colors differently. But for the most part, I'm trying to capture some of the colors I'm seeing there in the painting, but I'm not getting so focused, closing my eyes now and putting it on here. I'm not getting so focused on getting, again, the exact colors I see in the painting. I really truly believe you will, even though you are looking at his painting, your style is going to come through because it is your hand it's coming out of. Now, one thing I want you to draw attention to that you may not see is I have put some masking tape around the edge. And the reason why I do that is some of the paintings I do actually put in a frame. And so you want to make sure that wherever you're painting, the object of focus, you want to make sure that it's not reaching to the outer edge of this, just in case you want to put it in a frame later, because you don't want to miss out on picking up something because it's caught underneath where the framing needs to happen. So, I mean, you can get away from that if you maybe mat it before you do that, but I would say it's just best practices to put something around it so that you know that you're not going to put anything there that might be a bit too precious that you don't want to cover up. Okay, so again, as you can see, I'm being very careful not to go into the places that I've already gone, because again, you run the risk. You remember how when you were little and you want to use all the colors, and then what ends up happening is you have this mud color. So you don't want that. You really want it to be that you're just giving your paint some breathing space. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't show you. So I have the Apple Barrel Bright Red, and then the last one I'm going to add is this Apple Barrel King's Gold. And then again, I'm going to let this sit for a little while, not get overcomplicated with what I'm seeing, and just let it rest, let it work together. And for kind of a bonus, if you have some oil pastels on hand, it might be fun to add a little bit of the oil pastels. Don't have to use oil pastels. You also can use crayons. And again, it'll offer a nice effect. It just gives it a warmth behind your paint so that when you get started, you're again not feeling like, oh, I've got to perfectly match the way he's using you know, he's creating the peach blossom, I must get it just so. Now, maybe you do want to get just so, and that's fine, but this just takes kind of the pressure off it, that you don't, you know that something's working underneath, so you don't have to be so, I don't know, so anxious inside as you're doing your creative process. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let this dry a little bit. As you can see, it's already blending in with my birds. But see you back in a little bit. Again, let this dry. I would also say let's just turn it around a little bit and do a couple more, and then just leave it be so that you can see these rich colors coming through as you begin your painting process. All right, see you back in a bit. All right, so let's begin with our second meditation, if we count the first one being when you created the painting in the back, where you just painted the background. So right now I have mine drying here. It'll be ready to go very soon. And I've also printed off the painting that I'm inspired by, so I can be my muse as I move through my painting. But I'd like to start with a meditation. I'm going to incorporate what we call the tonal bells, and I will put some information down below if you're new to listening to the bowls, the Tibetan bowls. The singing bowls is another word for them. And so that's what's going to kind of get us into that place of just relaxing our heart and our mind and preparing for the painting of our Matisse painting in its style. So go ahead and take a few moments. You're going to take a few deep breaths. And the meditation for this moment is, I know what is best for me. I know what is best for me. So just let those words wash over you. I know what is best for me. And as you prepare yourself for our painting practice, notice what comes to mind when you think about those words. I know what is best for me. Let's take a couple more deep breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And then say the words after me. I know what is best for me. Repeat that one more time. I know what is best for me. Hold it gently in your heart. I know what is best for me. All right, let's go ahead and prepare to start our painting practice together. All right, so welcome back. I have a pencil in my hand, and I also have added to my palette a black paint and a white paint. So an apple barrel white and an apple barrel jet black. because I think these are nice to have in the mix, and it will also be what we really help to bring a cohesion to what it is that we're creating. So let's look at this painting of Matisse, the anemones and peach blossoms. So what I notice is there are some horizontal lines that break up this space for us. So do you notice there is this, this pattern of X's in the bottom quadrant? There's this black thick line, then what looks like what would be sitting against a wood panel, and then that blue space that could represent the wall that it's sitting next to. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take a pencil and I want you to start to break up your painting just like you see. So for example, if I'm going to put that the stripe, or excuse me, the X pattern down below, I'm going to make a line right here that kind of navigates where I'm going to place that. Okay. Then I'm going to make a thicker line that shows me where the stop between, let's say it's a table that the flowers are sitting on, and then the space between the floor and the seat and the wall. So I've got one line that represents where I'm going to put the table. Then I've got that break, that's kind of that brown area that separates the floor or the table from the wall. Then I'm going to come up a little further and I'm going to start to mimic that wood paneling. So I'm making the lines, the grid, and then I'm going to add the design in here. Now, here again is where you can start to take some creative license, right? So you don't have to necessarily do the pattern that you see here, but you want to be thinking about what you would like to do. What from this painting would you like to translate into the painting you're about to create? Okay. So as I'm gridding this out, I'm also thinking of those same things. Right now, again, even with the chaotic look of that background, as I bring the lines in, it starts to bring everything into focus. And then everything above that line now is going to be the area for, let's say, the wall. All right. So for me, what I like to do is I do like to start from top to bottom, but you can start your painting however you'd like. So if I'm going from top to bottom, I see that the blue area right here would be right at the top. I'm looking at it right now, and again, I'm trying to decide how much of that wall do I want represented in my painting, and that's where I've placed my line. So once I've made that decision, I'm then taking my blue paint. I'm using a 2 blue, but I'm probably going to add a little bit of this turquoise in and see what I think about it. And I've got all different sizes of paintbrushes, again, just based on what I'm going to add to my painting. But again, it's up to you what you want to take into your painting and what you want to just let be your inspiration for. So for perhaps, you know, for example, you don't necessarily like blue, so you might not necessarily want to put blue into your painting, right? Again, if I haven't mentioned before, I am on an 11 by 14 piece of paper, and it's a mixed media paper, so I can pretty much add watercolor paint, I can add oil pastels, anything to it, and it's weighty enough that it can take it without it feeling like it's going to tear in any way. All right, so I've got my 2 blue painting, my acrylic paint, and I'm going to go ahead and start to paint on there. And what you'll notice is perhaps some of the paint that you put underneath as your base might be showing through. Now, you can decide if you want to put more than 1 coat of paint on this area, or if you want to allow some of that to come through. And again, this is where the words inspired by come into play, because you adding that underneath then brings this into the space of it being your version of this painting. And you're simply using this as a starting point. Because if you're like me, or if you're like other artists that I know, sometimes it can be hard to come up with your own, you want to be creative, but you don't know really where to start. And so to find someone's paintings that you admire and then to, play around with it and make it your own, it's a lovely way to bring these things together and also fulfill your creative desire to make something, right? There is an artist and author by the name of Austin Kleon. I'll put his information in the notes on the lesson. And he wrote this book called Steal Like an Artist. And he was really the first one that helped me really understand that there's nothing wrong with trying out different styles, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick and choose what you're going to bring into your style. All right, so here I have it. I've got my blue in there. And so if I want to continue to just go down the painting as I see it, the next place I'm going to work with is the wood panel. So then I'm going to use my cream color. Let me see if I've shown this to you. I have a sunken peach color that I'm going to then add to this process. I'm going to use a smaller paintbrush, so always remember to clean your paintbrushes, you guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to outline that area where I want the wood paneling to show up. Okay. And so because I've put these lines in here, it really allows me to just play with the paint, right? Do I want it more or less? Do I want to change the colors? Let's see, I'm going to put that right here. And I hope that as you're doing this, you're experiencing the freedom of knowing the paint doesn't have to be perfect. The color doesn't even have to be perfect. But it gives you, it's almost like a new stylized form of the coloring book, right? Except you're, I guess, creating more of, making more of the decision making, if you will, because you are deciding whether or not you want a wood panel, what is the style of the wood paneling that you're putting on the paper, whether you want to change the color as you go through, which you can easily do that. As this sits and rests, you might come back to it and you might decide you want the spacing to be different, you want the sizing of the paneling to be different, and those are all choices that you get to make on your painting. Okay. So as you can see, I've got a good portion of this painting done where I've added in the wall and then I've also added in the wood paneling. Now from here, so if I'm taking it a little bit more literally, there's kind of a red tone in between. So then I'm going to come in between and I'm going to add the red tone. But again, noticing that because I've already put something underneath, that's going to show through a little bit. And I love that look. So again, if there's certain areas you want it to show through, take that creative license and let those colors show through. If you really want to get more of a true color of what you've chosen, then you'll just need to come back through again and add more paint, add another coat of your paint. Okay. So the affirmation for today is a really nice one, because I think there are times, you know, we love hearing from our friends and we love getting advice. Many of us do. And I think sometimes we come to a place in our lives where that one size fits all just doesn't work anymore, right? And so then what you need to do is, you know, to kind of pull back, you know, thank your friends for being there. But this is the walk that you need to do on your own. And guess what? You're capable of making that decision. About a week or so ago, I celebrated with some friends a birthday, and she's a younger friend. And it was funny because the older ones in the group, you know, 50 and above, we were joking around about hiking and going hiking, and somehow, someone had asked, are you a hiker? And the person asked, well, what constitutes calling yourself a hiker? And then we just kind of went on one of those metaphysical, philosophical tangents about, well, isn't life a hike? And aren't we all hikers to some degree? And it spurred on this conversation about life being a long hike, right? And so that's exactly to the point I'm making here, that there are times when someone will be able to give you the best advice. And then there are times where it's like, that you have to make a difficult decision that everybody's not going to understand, but it doesn't make it any less the decision you need to make. You just have to do it. All right, so as you can see, I've started adding in those tones, and from here, I can start to make that decision to go around maybe with a thinner paintbrush to, again, add more detail to my paneling. Now, if you are not comfortable with doing this, sometimes it's like, I don't want to mess up what I've created, you could always take like an oil pastel or a black crayon or even a Sharpie and add those details in. But as you can see, I'm just making these wispy lines around. I'm not getting too precious with what it is that I'm doing. I'm actually adding a little bit of red in with the black, so it does not feel like I'm trying to get it too perfect. Because again, for me, this is just my creative experience. Anytime I'm trying to make it too perfect, I have to stop. I have to stop because there's too much in the creative process that has goodness to it, that when I try to go, I got to get this just perfect, it just spoils it for me. I'm going to be honest. I'm married to someone who's like actually a fine artist, and his work is incredible. And he's been trained to do that, but he will tell you himself, he just does not find any joy in creativity because he can't, let it go and just let it be what it is. It's like the constant tending to it. And that's just never been a part of my experience, and I'm very thankful for it. Okay, so right now I'm just adding a little bit of yellow in there. I think I'm going to add a little bit of white. So again, trying to bring it into the more realistic realm of blending it together. And then you can, based on your eye and what you're doing, decide how to bring this more cohesively together so it doesn't look just like blocks of paint coming together. And I will say that as you let this dry, it's going to inform you more about where you might want to add some details. Okay, so there it is. There's my wall. There's my wood paneling. And then from here, I'm going to add just a little bit more of the white and the peach color. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring in the black. And I'm not going to go, again, too perfect where I have to get the whole thing, that perfect color, completely black square. Because again, I'm trying to keep some of what we created underneath. I want it to be a part of the painting. That is my finished process. Okay. So, and again, in order to feel a little bit more natural, I'm then going to add some red in there just to blend the two together. All right, so then we come to this bottom space here, and that's where you're going to do that. It's more like a diagonal lines, kind of a checkerboard type thing. So I'm going to first put my backing down there with the yellow, and I don't really want that the gold, I feel like it's a little bit too bright. So I think I'm going to darken it a little bit with my, maybe a combination of the peach and the cream. Let's see how that looks. And I'm just brushing it on with a sponge brush. Again, so I can not feel like I need to get that color perfectly into each space on my painting. This is a nice blend. So what I'm doing is I'm just tapping between the three colors and just allowing it to come through organically. Now with this one, I might go over it a couple times because I really do want that diagonal play that you see on the table / floor to really come through. So, and because I do like that pattern, so I want that to definitely be a prominent part of the finished painting. What I like again about the brush is that it gets the paint on the paper really quickly, and then from there, when I let it dry, I can then add details as I see fit. And I'm just spreading it along. And again, allowing what's underneath to show through. And what you'll see on your painting is that you've got a nice blend of what's underneath with what you've added to the top. I might even say, I think I want to go through here and just kind of lighten up this blue a little bit, because the blue is feeling a little bit too dark at this point. So now you've got the setup for the painting, and then from here, again, if you're going for that diagonal look and if you really do want more of a perfect look, you might want to use a ruler. I'm trying to see, I think I have one on my desk here. But what you're going to do is you're going to just start to add those lines. Now I've got an angled brush that I'm using, which works out nicely. As I'm looking at this, I kind of feel like I want to go over it again with like a brown. I don't want it so dark. So let's see, that might lighten it up a little bit. Feel like I should have gone with a brown. But again, I'm going to follow my own rules because I don't know if I've ever talked about this in my other videos, but there is such a place called the ugly part of your painting where you want to just throw it in the trash and never discuss it again. So that is such a thing. All right, I think I'm actually going to go with a gray. I just feel like that brown wasn't doing it for me. That black feels a little bit too dark. So here we go. So now feeling much more at peace with letting that go. And then I'm going to come back the other way. And again, you get to decide how large or how small those spaces are in between. Okay. And then I'm, again, always trying to look for ways to like make this feel not too broken up, you know, because yes, I started with a grid, but I also want this whole piece to feel cohesive. So I'm using a combination of my thumb, the side of my wrist, and then my paintbrush as well. So just bringing in a little bit more realistic, because, you know, when you're looking at paintings, you don't necessarily have it so broken down like that. All right, so this is the part where you go, all right, stop playing with it. Let it dry. All right, so here's the base here. We're going to let this dry, and then from here, we're going to then add our peach blossoms to our background. So I'll see you back in a bit. Well, hello and welcome back to our meditation for today. So go ahead and take a few moments to sit back and relax before we start our painting practice. As always, I'm going to start with the Tibetan bowls, and then we will have our affirmation for the day. The affirmation for the day is, I always figure out a way. I always figure out a way. And notice what emotions that brings up when you think about those words. I always figure out a way. Does it bring you joy? Does it frustrate you? Does it offer you peace? Maybe you need to change it to, I no longer want to figure out a way. I've decided not to figure out a way. Allow yourself to invite that affirmation in and reword it for the moment you find yourself in right now. I want to figure out a way. I will figure out a way. Let's take a couple more deep breaths. I like figuring out a way. I resist the urge to figure out a way. Let's take your affirmation into the next video as we continue to work on our painting. All right, so welcome back. So you've now painted that background, and I hope you enjoy what you see. So here again is this idea that I always talk about, that when you walk away from a painting and you come back later, it's better than you thought it was, maybe, or it's like, I know what I need to add to it next. So wherever you're finding yourself, you can begin to tweak it now, or what you can do is go ahead and move into the next phase where we're actually going to add those peach blossoms and the vase to the painting. Now, you may feel more comfortable drawing it out first. I am actually going to paint it on as I go. So we will see. Like I said, when I start these videos, I come at it fresh, just like you are. So what I come up with is what you see. So what I have is a few sizes of paintbrushes because, again, we're going to do some more detailed work. And again, detailed does not mean perfect. It does not mean photorealistic. What it means is we're getting a rendering of the flowers that you see in Matisse's painting. Again, you don't have to create these particular flowers. You can create something different. You might be inspired to do so as well. Maybe perhaps you have researched Matisse and have found another painting where you love the flowers in that painting and you want to incorporate it in. Perfect. This is your painting, okay? I am going to attempt to create what it is that I see here. So here we go. I'm going to start with creating the vase. And so in my picture, based on the colors on my printer, it has more of a grayish white feel. And so I'm going to decide that I'm going to put it right about here. And I'm going to start to paint it in right now. So I'm going to start by painting it in, I think, white, and then maybe add the details in later. To make it more of that gray look, that translucent look. And so as I'm creating it, and again, feel free to create your own style of painting, I want to add it pretty closely to the way I see it here. So I'm going for a more hourglass shape of the picture. As you can see it there, showing up on your screen. And then I'm going to come back through, I'm going to add the handle, and then I'm going to add the base on the bottom. Okay. Now, the beauty of me having it on the wall is I can just stand back and see what I think about it. For you, if you have it on your table or your easel, well, the easel might be fine because it's up at more of an angle as opposed to it being straight down. What you want to do, you want to have it so that it's sitting in front of your eyes so you get a better perspective of what it is that you're creating. So I do like the style of the vase that I've created. And so I'm going to make the opening a little wider so that I can start to put those flowers in when I'm ready. And then I'm going to fill that with color. Now, I accidentally touched some of my turquoise, and I actually like that. So I think I'm going to incorporate that a little bit into the picture. And that makes it a little bit more my own. Okay. And I think I'm going to use that blue to outline the arm. Okay. All right, so that gets me like a quick rendering of the vase that I'm going to put on there. And from there, I'm now going to start to create those flowers. So the flowers feel pretty organic, where you're just going to do that circle in the middle. And then you're going to make your choices about the colors of the flowers. So I've made 5 different circles. I'm going to make sure I get sometimes I get a little bit sloppy with the choice of my paintbrush, and that never serves me well. So I need to make sure I'm changing out my brushes. And then I'm just doing that kind of organic circle around each of them. I see there's a little bit of purple in there, so that gives me an invitation to add some purple. So I think I'm going to do that. Okay. And of course there's some white flowers. So add those in. And then the pink I'm going to leave for the peach blossoms that I see. And I might need to lighten up those flowers a little bit. Okay, so as I add those in, again, just trying to get something on the painting, and then I'm going to go back and add some more details to it. All right, so then if I'm going to go into painting the peach blossoms, I'm going to make those long stems first. So kind of have those peeking out. Different directions. Again, based on how you've created your flowers already, you want to move with how your flowers are moving. So have more of an organic stretch to them. And of course, having some of them leaning down into the vase. And I'm going to add some stems on the flowers. Oh, this is my sage green. That sage green makes me so happy. And you might even want to add some leaves to it if you want to. Maybe some stems. Again, let your brush go in an organic fashion. So now I'm going to get serious about making the pink paint. I have a tendency to overshoot and not get the true color that I want. So I'm going to work on it a little bit more. Okay, and then just add those in onto the stems. So right now I'm just kind of doing a dotting effect, again, just to get the color on the page. And then I'm going to step back and see what it is that I like and what it is that I want to remove. Okay. So now I've got kind of the basis of what it is that I want to create. And so now I'm going to do a little bit of outlining. I don't necessarily want to use black because I don't want it to be so overpowering, because even in the original painting, it's very subtle where you see the outlining, right? So perhaps around the flower, I might add some. And I'm using a gray paint to do this. Again, kind of use your judgment based on the palette that you're using. And again, you don't want it to be super perfect. You just want to go around in random places. Just really trust your eye, trust your paintbrush where it's moving. You know, if you don't like it, you can always go back and take it out. One of the things that I've gotten really good at in my painting practice is I really don't overthink it. Maybe it's partially because I've not had a lot of time in the past to be creative. I've been, I would say, probably creative pretty regularly for about 14 years now. But even then, through the midst of that, I've had young children, I've had full-time jobs, and I certainly didn't have spaces for me to create in. So it would just be like a little area on my kitchen table or something like that. And so I really did, anytime I found the time, I really forced myself to not get too, judgmental about the time and the amount of time and how I wanted more of it. I just took it when I could, knowing that one day I would have more time. And I invite you to do the same if this is something you might be struggling with. I do think it's important to take at least some time, but also when you get the time, just really value that you have it. All right, so from there, I like the colors and how they're coming together. I want to add a little more, actually, brown to the stems. I feel like I could have gone a little bit deeper in that brown there. So I think I'm just going to pull it through a little bit just to bring more of it to the forefront, because I feel like I'm losing it somehow. Now, same thing with you. Step back from your painting and see where you might have lost some perspective and you might need to add a little bit more. So again, as I was saying about that story I was telling you about, life is a long hike. Isn't creativity and art that same thing? Where have you lost your way? How can you find your way and trust yourself that you will find your way back? Right? Whether it be in a painting, whether it be in your career, whether it be in your relationships with your spouse or your children, there will come a time where it brings itself back. Okay. And remember, less is more, so don't get super fussy with your outcome, right? Okay. I think I have to tell that to myself. So I'm going to kind of trust that this is pretty much my finishing point here. I'm going to let it dry, give it some time to set, and then I might come back in. And the only thing I'm kind of considering at this point is I might add a little more lightness to the yellow. But again, I'm going to let it dry and I'm going to let it do its thing. And then I will check back with you and we'll have our final discussion for our class. All right, my friends, thank you for painting with me. Let's do our final affirmation and then we'll do our discussions about our painting and where we can go from here. Let's start with our Tibetan bells. This affirmation is, I trust myself. I trust myself. Another way to say it, I trust me. Notice how that feels when you say that. Perhaps you need to switch it around and say, I want to trust myself. Or, I want to trust myself more. Maybe you've heard those words, you don't trust me. I don't know if we can trust someone else if we can't trust ourselves. So craft the affirmation that you need for this moment. I trust me. I trust myself. I need to trust myself more. I will trust myself more. Let's take 2 more breaths. Say your affirmation once more to yourself. I will trust myself more. All right, let's go to our painting. All right, welcome back, you guys. So I'm going to take a look at the painting that I have created. And what I found, again, this is why it's so good to have your painting just sit for a while. Remember in the last lesson, I was talking about how I wanted to possibly take this painting and maybe lighten up this area. And what I've found is now that it's dried, it's just the right amount of yellow for holding this all together. And I really hope that you enjoyed this process. It's one of my favorite things to do because, again, it relaxes my mind with like, what am I going to paint and how am I going to paint it? And I'm just taking something that I really love and I'm just doing my own version of it. And I really love how it came out. And as I mentioned before, what I do is I put a piece of masking tape around it. And so it has a natural border already put on the painting. And so I could easily frame this for myself or gift it to a friend. And so I hope that you loved this series. I have many more that I'm going to bring to you. My goal is to do at least 2 a month. So please make sure and come on back and give me a review and give me some suggestions if there's a certain style that you would like to study. As far as my other classes, I have a couple of mandala classes. I have a couple of artists that I paint in the style of, and I also have a poetry class as well as an art journaling class. So all of those are available to you because it is my desire to take art, creativity, spirituality, and make it something that anyone can do, because the reality is we are spiritual beings having human experiences. But sometimes we need someone to help us walk through the process of how to tap into that in a more deep way. So glad you were here. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I hope to see you again soon in the classroom. See you later.